Welcome back to Scholastically Natalie. So, I decided to try something a bit different. Um, I do enjoy reading, and because I am completely a newbie to editing and all sorts of other things, I figured I'd go for something relatively easy that hopefully won't be too boring for you, or at the very least will make for a slightly okay ASMR feel, I guess. Anyways, so I want to try starting a series called Let's Read. This is not titled Let's Read because I was hoping to provide a little bit of, commentary slash analysis since this is a relatively short thing to read. But my ultimate idea for Let's Read is literally just reading out loud to you short or a little bit longer passages from things like Lord of the Rings or like H.P. Lovecraft or something that I'm currently reading. Honestly, I don't know if you'll like that or not. Feel free to leave feedback because I'm open to suggestions. Today, I just wanted to read to you from H.P. Lovecraft. This is a specific collection called Great Tales of Horror. It is from 2012, like a anthology of a lot of his works. It's very long. I'm not even close to halfway through it right now. Honestly, I just wanted to read you the introduction. I have no idea how to pronounce this man's last name, and I am not even going to try it. It's by Stefan. Or Stefan. But this was also written in 2012. Hopefully you'll realize that the commentary is by me, of course. I'm just covering all my bases. If you don't like commentary, you think I'm doing too much of it or doing too little of it, because remember, I'm a previous education major, so I tend to like to explain things. Okay, so we're starting with the introduction. In the 3/4 of a century since his death, H.P. Lovecraft, 1890 to 1937, has enjoyed a shift in literary reputation akin to that of Edgar Allan Poe, the writer whose work he held in highest regard. Like Poe, Lovecraft has gone from being perceived as a writer of a peculiar type of fiction with appeal only to a limited audience to being respected as a literary figure whose work measures up to that of other classic American writers, Poe among them. In Lovecraft's case, this change in critical estimation is perhaps a little more surprising. Whereas Poe wrote for mainstream publication and saw several collections of his poetry and short stories published in his lifetime, Lovecraft sold his writings to disposable pulp fiction magazines that were read almost exclusively by horror enthusiasts. I've underlined both of those quotes in the book. I am reading out of a physical book. Yes, I write all over mine. I'm a very bad human. But I underlined both of them because I thought it was pretty interesting. I don't know a lot about Lovecraft. I've never actually had to read him in school, despite the numerous amount of literary things that I've had to read. And I honestly just wanted to give him a try when I saw this book for sale in Barnes & Nobles, and I really like the way he writes. And I always think it's interesting because even though horror is still kind of like a niche genre, even today, it still has so much more recognition than it did, in the past. And, especially Lovecraft's type of horror. It's just so different from, honestly, anything else. I have yet to see something like it. Sorry, we'll continue. Only one book of his work, published in a minuscule print run, saw print before his death, and for much of the next quarter-century his work was nearly the exclusive property of the specialty press Arkham House, named for the famous town that dominates Lovecraft's weird tales and created largely for the purpose of getting Lovecraft's work between hardcovers. Unlike Poe until recently, Lovecraft's legacy was obscure after his death as in his lifetime. It is as a horror writer that most readers know Lovecraft, and in that regard there is no question that he is one of the genre's most important authors, the greatest American horror writer after Poe, and an artist who has influenced every horror writer of consequence who came after him. Prior to Lovecraft, most writers of supernatural fiction built stories around traditional genre fixtures, the vampire, the werewolf, the demon, and especially the ghost, and framed their dramas in terms of the struggle between good and evil. Lovecraft, by contrast, gave a cosmic scope to his horrors more akin to that of science fiction, albeit a science fiction that looked apprehensively over its shoulder more than it looked forward. So here I have a note that this is the same for most mainstream horror that is still, subject to these tropes of vampires, werewolves, demons, ghosts. I think we're really more fixated still on the demons and the ghosts. I am personally not a horror watcher because I have a way too overactive imagination, and as much as I love having to like get up to go do something in the middle of the night and having my paranoid brain give me visions of axe murderers and giant spiders, I'd rather not. Yeah, I'm a big baby in that terms. But I do deeply enjoy the channel Dead Meat, as honestly most humans should. Um, and I've really enjoyed listening to their podcast when they talk about these sort of things, and I've watched quite a few breakdowns of horror movies because I find them interesting. Um, and I've noticed that, like, especially after, like, the big hit of, like, The Exorcist and all of the zombies, like, we still don't look to much science fiction. Like, yes, we do have Alien and we do have, like, Predator, although, honestly, I think Predator is like that weird mixture between like thriller and horror, from my understanding. And we do have those, but even still, it's more of, oh no, we have to run away from the big scary demon, whereas, well, demon alien thing. Whereas for Lovecraft, it's just this creeping awfulness. Like, it's just, you know, something bigger is there and it's watching the characters and it is awful and horrifying and you can't escape it. Like, even in Aliens, everything that happens in it is caused by man. Like, in a lot of our horror, it's something that, like, the main character has done to screw up or, like, to bring something's attention upon them. It's humans have caused it, and so humans can fix it eventually, hopefully. Either that or they all die. But for Lovecraft, there's next to nothing humans can do. They just have to weather it and suffer through it and die. And it's such a different outlook that I really enjoy that. Like, I like seeing just humans are insignificant. I do enjoy that. I think that's why I enjoy his work so much. Okay, anyways, continuing on. In a 1927 letter to Farnsworth Wright, editor of Weird Tales, the magazine that published most of his stories, Lovecraft wrote, "Now, all my tales are based on the fundamental premise that common human laws and interests and emotions have no validity or significance in the vast cosmos at large. To achieve the essence of real externality, whether of time or space or dimension, one must forget that such things as organic life, good and evil, love and hate, and all such local attributes of a negligent and temporary race called mankind have any existence at all." I love this quote. This is literally everything I want when people have to deal with, like, gods or goddesses or even just extra dimensional things. Like, why on earth should, like, humans or, like, a specific human matter? Like, why? That's always a question I have, and I do enjoy seeing that answered. Like, I've already told you I'm a giant nerd about D&D, but, like, the biggest issue I ran into with, like, my gods and goddesses is that I made them basically like the Greek gods. They're petty, they want to mess with humans. Whereas, like, I always feel that it has so much more impact to be like, this is a god that does not care about you except for what you can do for them. And, like, I like that so much more. Or even just, I don't care, I'm gonna outlive all of you. I can just wait for another 10,000 years. I find that so much more terrifying. Like, I love that. Like, if the not poltergeist, let's think about one that I know a little bit better. If, like, in Paranormal Activity, that ghost had just been like, well, I mean, like, if you die, you die, whatever, man. Or, like, I can wait a little bit longer. Like, I love that. And I think they did achieve some of that with, like, Insidious, at least. But at the same time, I'd love to see more of that. Okay, we'll continue on. To make his point about the insignificance of human concerns outside of a human frame of reference, Lovecraft conjured a pack of monstrous entities with such provocative names as Cthulhu, Yog-Sothoth, Azathoth, Shub-Niggurath, and the like. I'm doing my best with those words. And I love that his names are just so alien. I've recently started watching Rick and Morty, which is not quite my level of humor, but it tickles it enough sometimes that I'm pleased. But the one thing I really do like about Rick and Morty is that all of their aliens have such weird names, and, like, they make no sense, and I love that. Like, that, I find that endlessly entertaining. Okay, continuing. Biologically impossible, these beings exist out of space and time, though they occasionally emerge in our world to wreak havoc. Lacking a sensibility appropriate for appreciating these beings' incomprehensible alienness, humans tend to refer to them in a vocabulary usually reserved for describing gods and their awesome supernatural powers. I love I just get so excited about like Lovecraft because I absolutely adore that his beings are incomprehensible. I love it. Like that is my favorite thing is that anytime he talks about them, he just talks about like a sliver of them because if he tried to tell us the entire thing, like our brains would explode. Like that's how he treats them in his writing and it comes through so well because it makes them so much more frightening. Like you never learn why they want to do what they do because that doesn't matter because we don't need to know because they're going to kill all of us. Like I just find that so cool. I really enjoy that like deep like dedication to how insignificant we are. Like I don't know, it's a really great sense of just like creeping understated horror that I think a lot of like horror nowadays is kind of like lacking. The stories in which Lovecraft explicitly references these monsters were singled out by his publisher as his tales of the Cthulhu mythos. Over the years, many of Lovecraft's colleagues and literary disciples contributed their own Lovecraft-inflected stories to the mythos, making it one of the biggest and most enduring shared worlds in modern fantastic fiction. Though Lovecraft's so-called mythos tale represents some of his best writing and best-known work, it's not really appropriate to consider them as entities apart from his other stories. The mythos is just one approach Lovecraft used to express the strangeness of horrors beyond human ken. Again, love that turn of phrase. Like, antiquated writing and, like, antiquated terms, my favorite thing ever. I underline them in, like, every single book I read. All but a handful of the 20 stories in this volume, mythos and non-mythos, are set in Lovecraft's fictionalized version of New England, where towns named Arkham, Dunwich, and Innsmouth are homes both to backwoods rustics and civilized sophisticates who chance upon horrors in the course of their daily lives. Invariably, the revelations they uncover are mind-shattering, driving them to despair, madness, and even death. Ultimately, this is what unites all of Lovecraft's macabre fiction. The terror that characters, and by extension the reader, feel when they come to realize the inconceivable horrors that lie in wait just beyond the small, well-lit circle of the familiar world they have always known, and the understanding that, for all of their education, they are little better than superstitious primitives, cowering in fear at the sounds of vast and incomprehensible things that lumber about unseen in the surrounding darkness. Oh, even the introduction is creepy. I love it. I love it so much. Like, I think this perfectly captures just how well Lovecraft just makes you feel like you are on one side of a curtain and on the other side you can like just hear like something moving and like you can make out just enough detail that you're like, that thing's not built like a human, like it's not like me and I don't know what it is and I don't know what it wants. And it's just, it is that, it's perfect. I love it. That is the entirety of the introduction to the anthology that I have. The first thing you get to read next is the Call of Cthulhu and like the collected like different parts of it, which I'm invested in that one. I just flipping through it a little bit ago, I just saw passages that I had just highlighted because I was like, this reads so well. Again, I'm a giant literary nerd, and I realized halfway through college that I own books, and therefore I can write in them. So, I annotate all the books I own, which honestly is a very recommended thing to do. I really enjoy it. I write myself little notes. I get sticky notes and, like, put them all through books if I need to. But, yeah, tell me how you feel about this. If you enjoyed me kind of, like, breaking up the more academic or, like, antiquated words with some of my own commentary, if you think I've commentated too much, if you think I've commentated too little, if I've explained things that I don't need to explain because I am a giant nerd whose instinct is to still teach people. Let me know. If you'd like to see more of this, let me know. If you like the idea of Let's Read, what I have planned is the prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring next. If we're feeling it. If not, maybe I'll just break up the Call of Cthulhu into chunks that don't make me want to rip out my throat and are kind of more sustainable, and maybe do that. I don't know. Let me know how you're feeling. All in all, Scholastically Natalie, out.